You are listening to Off Color, a podcast where we move beyond polite conversation for real talk about race. I'm your host, Rebekah Henderson, aka The Tan Tigress, and I got my producer and my homie, White James. And our guest is award-winning poet Dominique Christina. She has a new book out called Anarcha Speaks, and this episode is lit as beep. Hold on, where's my drink? All right, take a little sip. All right, wait, James, I see you're abstaining from drinking booze.
I had a couple of beers earlier, so I'm...
Okay, fine.
But that's the thing is, I am really abstaining lately, and so I had 2 beers today, which is probably the most beers I've had in like half a year.
Wait, why are you abstaining? Can you talk about it?
For any real particular reason. I'm just like trying to get up in the morning, trying to stay on my meditation. I have a lot of studying to do. I just have a lot going on, and I'm just, I don't know, trying to keep it kind of strictly social here and there, or, you know, just not so much.
Well, I don't want to talk about my drinking problem, quote unquote.
Well, I'm sorry I brought it up.
All right. Then we're not going to talk about it. I'm just going to drink my wine. You're not going to drink anything, and that's fine.
Just pretend this is just straight gin.
Are you on a diet? Is that like the real thing?
I'm really not on a diet, no.
All right, fine, because you're looking a little chubby.
Wow.
Just kidding. All right. No, for real though. You look great. Okay. So tonight we have Dominique Christina, and she is amazing.
It was a really great conversation.
I mean, I feel like we laughed about it afterwards because we were both just like, everything she said, we both just were like gazing at her like she was like the prophet or something.
Yeah.
You know, we were like, word, Dominique, word.
She's got that. And actually, I felt a little bad about it afterward. I kind of thought like, and she actually talked about this a little bit about how hard it is to deal with fans and stuff like that who really like want a lot out of her. I thought a little bit about how like difficult it must be to be a person like that. She's just like a presence. She's like, she's really striking looking. She's super tall, and she has these really unique tattoos and things like that. So she's really like eye catching. And then she's this really talented sort of ethereal person with this interesting point of view. And I feel like to a certain degree, it must really be a pain in the ass when you're just trying to talk to people and they're just kind of looking at you.
Especially me, because I'm like, oh, my queen. I'm like fanning her and shit. So anyway, so that conversation, you guys are going to hear about that in a minute. But before we get into that, we just wanted to, because we recorded that last week.
We did.
So we want to catch up a little bit on our Lord and Savior, Kanye West.
Yeah. We ended up talking to Dominique about Kanye a lot because when we recorded, it wasn't that long ago. It was
this last Sunday, still. It was,
and it was just after it had come out that Kanye had supposedly designed the Blexit logos. And Dominique, being sort of a nonconformist artist kind of person, we thought she might have interesting perspectives on Kanye, and she did.
But she even met him. Oh, spoiler alert.
Oh, that's right. That's
spoiler alert.
She'll talk about that. Because is she from Chicago?
No, she's from Denver, but her mom...
Whatever. She'll
later.
Talk about it.
You guys listen to that later, so don't be turning us off.
But anyway, we just wanted to update because we talk about Kanye designing the Blexit stuff. Apparently, Kanye did not design the Blexit stuff, was really mad that it had been attributed to him. And as of tonight's taping, has announced that he has seen the light and knows that he's being used by the right wing and is stepping away from politics. For all I know, that'll change between now and when this thing gets uploaded in like less than 48 hours. But
we never know. Kanye a wild card.
Is there anything else we would say about that, or is that just kind of like a thing to put at the top?
Are you talking to me?
I'm talking to you.
Who, me?
We are the only people in this room.
Okay. I would say that Kanye, I don't know. I'm still hoping Kanye listening to this because I feel strongly that the words that Dominique Christina has for him will change his life. I really do. think I'm kidding. I'm not, because he's an artist. That's like artist to artist. That's like soul to soul stuff. So Kanye, I'm hoping that that this is gonna find its way to you. I really am. Okay. So that said, that was some crazy stuff. And you guys can hear more about that in a few. But first, before we're gonna do something new, you guys, we have a new call-in hotline. I'm working on a song. Hold on, let me see it. Ready? It goes like this. 719-377. Hold on, let me start over.
Yeah.
Got a question or a comment? James's face. James, you're like one of my favorite people. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Anyway, 719-377-6219. It's the Off Color Hotline. All right, so we're going to get Jeanette Hollowell supposed to make us a jingle. So that'll be coming soon. So if you want to give us a call, leave us a message. The number is actually
719-377-6219. That's 719-377-6219. And if you missed it, this is not the radio. This is a podcast. Just rewind it. I don't know why I feel the need to say it over and over again.
You can just go back to it. It's not the radio. Just go back. It's not the radio.
Or follow us on Twitter at Off Color Pod or on Facebook at Off Color Podcast, where we will be promoting it regularly.
Yeah, or Tan Tigress is my Insta, in case anybody wants to follow.
Or go ahead and tweet at us or DM us or whatever, but we prefer the voicemail because then we can play it on the air.
Word, which we're going to do right now. So we released the number, and we did get a few calls. We can't get us all of them tonight, so everyone who left a message, we can't guarantee you will be on the show, but most of the messages we have received, I feel like, are definitely worth.
Yeah.
We'll be digging into them as we go forward.
We really have some pretty amazing people listening to the show. People we know, people we don't know, people local, people not local. We have good questions. We're trying to keep these Rebekah and James intros kind of short. That may fail on this episode. But so if you call in and you think you had a good question and you don't hear it on the air, do not despair. We're going to hold on to him.
Yeah, we're holding on to him. All right. Yeah. So this is the first one we got. Here, I'm going to play it. All right, here I go.
White Emily from the good old suburbs of Arvada, Colorado. I wanted to call and say thanks for all the energy that you put into the podcast. I had a moment of white stupidity this week, and I said something I regretted. And, I could have let it go, but, I was motivated and empowered by the conversations that you guys are generous enough to host each week. And first step, I confronted myself, and then second step, I got brave and I made the hard call, and it ended up having a great discussion with somebody and building a bridge and turning that moment of regret into something positive. So I want to say really, really thanks so much for shining a light. Okay, thanks, bye.
Oh my God, I love that. What the hell? Sorry, I had a genuine reaction to that.
No, that's really great.
Because I feel like...
Well, especially, I don't know about you, but after getting to listen to the last episode from the archives and hearing us talk with Dr. Gregory Diggs about what our vision for the show was and the conversations that it was about and the kind of people that we wanted to reach and the kind of change that we wanted to make, I feel like that just locks right in with what we have been looking to do with this show from the start.
Yeah. And I feel good. Oh, snap. Are we patting ourselves on the back right now?
That's all right.
I got a little pat. So that wasn't actually a question. That was just a shout out to us, but whatever. I'll take it.
Yeah. If you want to call in and just tell us how great we are really happy to have you do that as well.
That's fine. Or how terrible we are, and then we won't play that one.
That's fine too.
All right. Should we do another one?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. So this is coming from... my favorite person. This is like my favorite person that listens to our show because of his Twitter handle. His Twitter handle is @cornfednegro2. I think something happened to his first account. All right, let's see. Okay, ready? You ready? All right, here I go.
Miss recommendation, Miss Henderson. This is Richard Good, your number one podcast fan in the state of Nebraska, a.k.a. @CornFedNegro2. So, I was just wondering if y'all ever plan on hitting the road. I mean, I know the podcast is, Denver-based and Denver-centric and all that, dealing with mainly Denver topics. Yeah, I wonder if y'all had any interest of hitting the road, doing some 250, 500-mile radius satellite shows, stuff like, hey, Off-Color Podcast on location in Omaha, Nebraska. I don't know. But, just something like that. Y'all ever think about hitting the road, doing something? Let me know. Later.
That gentleman is not pretending to be from Nebraska.
He is definitely from Nebraska. Yeah. Oh my gosh, corn-fed Negro too. You are beautiful. I love it.
So, I would happily go to Nebraska. I would say I would put that on what's his name? What's his first name?
Richard.
I would put that on Richard. I would ask Richard if he knows anybody in local activism or politics or anybody that would be valuable to have on the show. I would.
Nebraska's not far. I mean, I think it's like 50 hours of corn or something between there, here and there. Mm-hmm. I've never been.
I've been through on road trips. I haven't stopped to do anything.
So I feel like, you know what I'm going to say? Oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm saying if the first trip we do will be to Omaha, Nebraska.
I would do that.
All right, so that is it. So if we can get enough people, but I hope it's just not just Richard in the audience. That would be fine too, but I feel like...
No, well, that's why I'm saying I would want bang for the buck, have an episode with a couple of people on it of local import or whatever. Richard pays for the gas, etc. That kind of thing.
All right, that's
Thank
good.
you for listening,
Thanks
Richard.
so much, Richard, man. We love you, man. All right, now, so that was good. So we do have, let me see, I think we have one question. This one's an actual question. Should we go for it?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Whew.
Hey, Off-Color Podcast. I've got a big question. Is voting identity politics the new vote the party line? Or is it the way to the new revolution to overthrow this white supremacy, patriarchal, capitalistic society? Is it just maintaining the status quo by galvanizing the right and dividing the left into smaller groups? Tell me what you think. I need to know. I guess our midterm election might give us some hints. Bye.
Damn.
What the hell are we supposed to do with that?
She should be hosting this show.
she was supposed to be on, I think. She seems like someone we should have on, right?
Absolutely.
Woo. Oh my God.
Well, damn.
Identity politics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I feel like that term, that was something, so with Dr. Diggs, my whole film basically came from this idea of my all mixed up or changing racial identities, was when I watched that crazy movie and then I was like, oh, it's an identity politics. And Dr. Diggs was like, when you see that, that's code from the right. Mm-hmm. That but that's not real. That's not what the origins of identity politics. Identity politics comes from Black women who were I feel like the right has co-opted that and made it seem like...
It's one of those things like political correctness was a term created by the left that had a certain meaning and sort of has a different meaning now as it was sort of reworked.
Yeah. So, but I like this question that she's asking us if it's is it the new party line? Are we voting? Okay, so I struggle with this because I can't take my identity out of my politics, I guess, because it's all one thing. And I feel like we kind of talked about that when we had Chantel Lewis, who's running for RTD. We had her on the show recently. And... so something came up tonight. I feel weird kind of talking about it, but I think we're just gonna have to go ahead and do it. Okay?
I think we'd be a little bit remiss if the news was what it was on Monday morning and we hadn't addressed it.
Yeah. Okay. So just so people know, we're recording this Saturday night. We saw that Chantel Lewis made a statement about some kind of crime that she had committed and she'd paid her dues and whatever on Facebook. I didn't know anything about it. And I just remember saying, I was like, girl, I'm voting for you because you're Black and qualified, right? But for me, that I feel like white people on the right may hear me say, I'm voting for you because you're black, and they're like, oh, that's it. But that wasn't the reason. I'm voting for her because she's qualified and she has like a history of doing X, Y, Z. In addition to me, the fact that she's black is like a bonus.
Right. Well, there are black people on the ballot who you are not voting for.
Yeah, but that's because they are not aligned with my
exactly.
politics.
So the fact that they're black is clearly not sufficient to get your vote.
No.
So,
no.
I mean, that's what I would say. And I mean, the Chantel thing is a very specific kind of local thing that we can talk about in detail. Generally speaking about identity politics, something that I like to mention when people bring up identity politics is the biggest peddler of identity politics in the United States is Donald Trump. Like, we don't... So it's the reason why any conversation about sort of reverse racism or anything that comes from white people sort of complaining about groups such as black people owning their identity and working from it, if we accept that whiteness and blackness and these various categories are essentially white inventions in this society, you need to realize that people are working with what they've been given. Identity politics have been happening forever. The Klan is identity politics. 3/5 compromise is identity politics. So identity politics is dyed in the wool of everything we do in this country. But as per usual, if something is done by white people, it's sort of treated as an invisible default. And then when it's employed by any other group, that's the only time that we point to it and sort of acknowledge its existence. So to whatever degree identity politics exists and is not ideal, it should be recognized that any, for example, black identity politics that may be occurring in America are a reaction to an existing structure of white identity politics that has underlaid everything that's happened politically in this country since 1776 and before. And so that's just my big thing as a white person who frequently finds himself in conversations with white people who sort of invoke this concept of identity politics, is to try to orient people around the fact that every single day the right wing is on the radio and on television promoting white identity politics. We just don't call it that because whites are a majority.
You guys, that's why I love White James and let him come over to my house, because he says the things that I'm thinking, except I can't actually say them in a way that is articulate. Did I say that about myself?
You did, and that's not true.
Tell me how great I am, White James.
Oh, God.
All right.
We'll be right back.
Okay, no, but seriously, for real. So we're going to get real here now, because we always do. And we had a conversation off mic before this show about like our role as podcasters. Like, we have a microphone, we have a platform, we have an audience. And what does that mean? Because I am voting. I voted today. And I voted for Chantel Lewis. She's my district RTD person. I have been out canvassing for her. I have had many people that I know vote for her based on my recommendation. Like, that's real.
Sure.
And I know her to the degree that I know her. I think she is a beautiful and lovely person. I think she is really down for the community. I think that whatever happened in the past, for me, doesn't really matter. I feel like I shouldn't say that it doesn't really matter. I feel like it doesn't affect my vote. I don't regret voting for her. I feel like I still would have voted for her regardless. However, if we're gonna like be real and like, that's it, like, what's our responsibility? Because, you know, we've had guests on this show that, like, if you Google them, you gonna find some stuff. Okay? But I want to be very clear that these are people that I welcome into my home, that I have around my child, that I have at my table. Okay? And I'm good with that.
Right.
So
Well, I guess the conversation we had a little bit off mic before we got down here and started recording was this sort of question of sometimes we struggle with like, what is our position? What is our role, I guess, is the question in the community. What is the show for? Is this show journalism? Are we doing journalism?
No.
It's not.
I am in Colorado Association of Black Journalists, though, but only because I just like being in that group.
I hope it's understood that
CABJ!
That's sort of a rhetorical question. We are not journalists. Neither of us have been to journalism school. We voice our opinions. If you listen to our voting episode, you know that
we had some things wrong.
They are a work in progress. And also the pool of people that we interview, some of them are people that we, primarily Rebekah, meet through professional channels, advocacy channels, things like that. But most of them are friends and friends of friends.
Yeah.
There's a friendly vibe in the show, but a lot of them are also really important and controversial public figures.
I'm going to stop you because I feel like if Diggs was here, he would take that butt out of your mouth and say, and they're our friends and they are controversial figures to some extent.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't really have like a good answer for it. I can only speak from my heart in this case. And I don't really know what happened with Chantel. Like, do you know, James? Because I feel like she put out a statement.
That's kind of to the point. I was just thinking that what we're saying right now is probably pretty vague to people listening. And that's the situation, is that we don't really know. There's a statement Chantel put up online on her Facebook page, basically in anticipation of something that's about to come out in the media. And her indication is that this was in 2008, shortly following a big personal tragedy where her fiance passed away in a car accident. It's something for which she was arrested and caught. She was sentenced to 2 years probation and had to pay restitution. She didn't specify what this offense was, and whatever's coming out in the media is not out yet as of this time. So that's all really vague. In the comments of her Facebook page have been some people clarifying the allegations, but again, this is just coming from Facebook commenters. I don't know. So I don't know how real it is, but the comment was something to the effect that she was employed by the Department of Human Services and defrauded or embezzled some amount of money. And the amount of money listed on the Facebook page is $6,000. Now, by the time this episode is up, this should be out in the media and there should be full details. So if that turns out to be totally false, I don't want to be somebody just reporting something I read on a Facebook page.
But you just did.
But I will say, and this is something that I think Chantel and her campaign have to own a little bit, is that her statement doesn't indicate what it was. So we don't really have a lot to work with.
And I think that's a huge thing in general in politics. Like, I just want people to like own up to their shit.
Right.
That's what I want.
Right.
And so locally, I know we have an international audience and stuff, but like locally here in Denver, we had a case with one of our House representatives, Jovan Melton. You can like Google it, whatever. But I feel like I just want people to admit they did some shit and it was a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't absolve them of it. But I want them to fucking admit it. I feel like people get very uncomfortable when people try to cover stuff up or it's like, it feels like a lie. And I think that is where it gets complicated for me. I have to say I'm surprised that because this has to be like a matter of public record.
Yeah, so that was something that one of Chantel's supporters had said in her defense in this Facebook thread was, hey, this is a matter of public record. Anybody could have looked it up at any point, and they didn't, like, until now. But, I mean, of course, you know, to me, I have to admit, you know, even as someone who sat here and enjoyed Chantel's company and has supported her candidacy, I mean, that's a pretty weak defense of a politician to say that somebody didn't have to reveal something in their past because it was our job to dig it up. I mean, that's not a great response, that didn't come from Chantel, by the way, for the record, but it came from
I guess from I feel bad, listeners, because I feel like you guys should have heard our earlier conversation, but you couldn't because it wasn't recorded.
Yeah.
But I feel like I voted for Chantel today, and I stand by that vote.
Mm-hmm.
And tomorrow, I will be happy to continue to canvass for her in my neighborhood. And I feel like that seems like kind of a crazy thing to say, but this is what I'm, okay, so to the question about the identity politics, for me, it's beyond that. Like, I'm not ready to throw away a qualified Black female candidate over some mistake that she made and paid her dues for 10 years ago. Because when I think of who I was 10 years ago, not even 10 years ago, like when she was 22, right? Because she's younger. The shit I was doing at 22 was not so good, right? So I'm kind of inclined to be like, well, she made mistakes. She atoned for them. She's done nothing but good works from then until now. So why should she be disqualified from running for public office if a fucking rapist can be on the Supreme Court? Mm-hmm. Are you going to answer me or no?
Well, I mean, I don't have an answer because I didn't support putting the rapist on the Supreme Court, so I don't have I don't really have I can't make that comparison.
Okay.
Of course, we don't have to look farther than our own city. I mean, our sitting mayor is someone who we know is at least a sexual harasser and an abuser of his position. And he remains.
Because men can do this shit. I mean, the president of the fucking United States, the president of the country, is disgusting and has all kinds of sexual allegations against him. Right? So that's the heat.
Yeah. We heard that heat kick on.
Shut up.
If you heard if you heard the heat kick on, what I would like you to do if you heard that heat kick on is I would like you to call the off-color hotline. The number is 719-377-6219. Just let us know because Rebekah and her lovely husband Ken insist that nobody can hear the heat kick on. My position is that as the guy who runs the mics and mixes the show, it's a little bit embarrassing that I have this vent blowing in the background. And this is a point of dispute, but now we can bring in some impartial third parties. So 719-377-6219. I'm going to say it again in case you can't hear me over the heat, because I think that's possible. 719-377-6219. You let me know what the sound quality situation is, and we can go from there. But what were we talking about? No, so we're talking about this Chantel thing, and it's hard to talk about because the facts are not all in, and we have to admit to some bias. I mean, we like her, and we hung out with her. She's not in my district, so I'll be totally honest. I didn't even really research her opponent because I didn't have a vote to cast. She was just a nice lady who sat in here on the podcast, and I really liked her and thought she was funny and enjoyed her positions and everything she had to say about her vision for RTD. So, but it does kind of come down to... When
you say but,
sure.
It negates like everything you just said before.
I mean, I understand how people say that. And it's also a real comparison. It is like a thing. We wonder about this stuff when we do this show. Is like, do we have a responsibility to do what a journalist would do and talk about different sides of issues? Or is it more that, this is just a basement we're hanging out in and we're just going to talk about what we feel like?
So part of it is that. It is just the basement and we're going to talk about shit because the thing is we're not journalists.
No.
And I be giving misinformation all the time. So there's that. And I don't even like doing that because my profession is about giving good information.
Right.
this does not reflect anything from my employer.
We're usually pretty forthright about the fact that we don't know what the hell we're talking about. Yeah.
So I just want to be real about it, and I feel like I saw that, and my first reaction to it was, I don't care. I know her. Like, in my heart, in my belly, in my gut, like, I feel like I'm like, Chantel is the real deal. And, you know, she shouldn't be judged on, like, the worst thing she fucking ever did. Because do you want to be judged for the worst thing you ever did, James?
Of course not. And, of course, we've sat here and spoken against, you know, mass incarceration and the death penalty and, you know, punishments for crimes far more severe. And, you know, our position on that is also that people shouldn't be judged by the worst thing they've done. I think probably if voters are feeling some kind of way about it, it's the fact that most people have voted already, and this is information that they would have liked to be able to vote on prior.
Yeah, I believe it, but I also feel like, man, I'm always thinking about the systems and the structures that put things into place that have an impact on our actions. And so I can't help but think about that because, yeah, like I said, we have had some controversial guests on and we'll hear this and that about them. And I want to get to the heart of it, like why somebody will commit a crime. Like, what's the real reason?
Sure.
And I just think we have a country in which if you are born as a black or brown person, you are coming into this world, into our society, with a disadvantage. And when everything is sort of stacked against you, like, what do you do with that? You know? And off mic, sorry, Representative James Coleman. We talked about you. Because to me, James Coleman, who's a local House representative here in Colorado, he's like a good guy. He was on an episode when we did the Hope Tank, the live episode.
He was on the live episode.
He's just like a real good person.
He is.
And he had some of the same struggles and hardships that other people have, and he stayed on the right path. However, he talked about it extensively on that episode, on the Hope Tank episode, that like he was on like his last chance.
Right.
And he so easily could have gone a different way. Just like if my parents hadn't moved out of Brooklyn in 1978, I may have been a very different person.
Sure.
You know? And so from the environment that I was growing up in. And you know why, James, because you grew up a little rough around the edges from what I hear. Is that true?
That's true. Yeah.
You know? Why James Poe? That's what my Uncle Charles would say. He's too Poe. Uncle Charles, I love you. Okay, so I'm just saying that to say that I don't want to throw people away because of choices that they made, especially if those choices are not necessarily something that I deem by my moral code as reprehensible.
Yeah.
So for me, for example, right, Kavanaugh, that appointment of him. To me, that guy was gross, and he like wants to regulate my body and shit, and he's like racist, right? I mean, we didn't know that, and so I feel like he's doing that, and I didn't want him to be on the Supreme Court. I didn't think he deserved to be on the Supreme Court, and I feel like you're looking at me, White James, now like, well, if Chantel did a crime, and so she shouldn't be allowed to be holding public office.
No, I'm not. Well, no, I'm not looking at you like that. First of all, I would say, I mean, it's a hard thing to compare Kavanaugh, and I know part of the reason you brought it up is because I brought up Kavanaugh upstairs. But as I think about it, it's not a great comparison. Kavanaugh never faced any legal consequence for what he's accused of, doesn't admit to what he's accused of. So it is different from Chantel's situation where, based on the information we have, Chantel was caught. She was duly punished and made whatever recompense she needed to make. But I mean, I would say if we were talking about this and it was not a person that I knew and it was not a person that I met, and we were talking about someone who was running for public office, who had previously abused a position in government, I mean, if I'm being really, really real, my response might be, I don't want to throw this person away. I don't want to destroy this person's life, but they don't get to hold public office. That would honestly probably be my blind response to the situation. And so if people feel like that, I get it. But I also think you did just say, well, I know her. And that's beyond fair. You get one vote just like everybody else gets one vote, and you know her and you take that information into account and you choose to vote for her. If somebody next door says, well, I don't know her and I don't like learning that and that makes me not want to support her, I can't say that I disagree with that person or think that they're wrong. That would be what I would say about it.
So this is where, when I start to feel like this idea of like identity politics or race comes into play for me, because I feel like I'm willing to cut people of color some slack as long as the shit isn't too egregious, right? So, example, Bill Cosby. Nope, no slack, raper.
Right.
Don't care, okay? R. Kelly. Nope, no slack.
I mean, this is the third rapist we've mentioned. Can we say plain and flatly, embezzling $6,000 from your employer is not in the same criminal universe as raping people? There's no comparison here. No one is saying that Chantel's that bad.
Okay, but I feel like that is from the right. That's what they think.
Right.
They say that we'll support anybody black or anybody brown.
Right.
Or woman or whatever, just because that person is the same as us.
Right.
And that is not true.
Right.
Because if that were true, Ben Carson would be on this fucking show.
Sure.
That sleepy ass Uncle Tom motherfucker.
Or more locally, Mr. Casper.
Whatever his last name. I hate that guy, dude.
I actually forgot it. Stockholm. Casper Stockholm.
So he's running for office. He better not. I mean, okay. I need to pull my shit together before I say something that ends up.
And just a few minutes ago, we had negative words about Michael Hancock, and we hope that he loses in his upcoming election.
Oh yeah, because I'm gonna have I'm Team Lisa Calderon, and everybody knows that. So that. Yeah, no, we don't want a token. Not all skinfolk are kinfolk.
The idea, again, I'll go back to this idea of who invented identity politics. The idea that a demographic, i.e., my fellow white people, a demographic who have seated white men as 44 out of 45 presidents that have sat, who have seated white men in every seat that's ever been occupied in the Supreme Court with the exception of a number we can count on our fingers. The notion that we put forth the accusation that other people are participating in identity politics in voting, when all of the numbers show that identity politics have benefited white men 99.999% of the time, is just kind of a ridiculous accusation. Like it's almost the weight of history shows me that that's not even an argument that needs to be made.
Now, what about taking into account, though, the personal piece? Because we know what we know about Chantel, that she had her fiance, the father of her child died. And like, you and I know grief and the loss of someone. You don't be thinking right? And I don't want to make excuses, but
it can take a lot less than that to make you not think right, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I also think, like, how long are we going to, like, punish people for the things they did in the past? Particularly, again, I will say, when they're not egregious. I don't know, man.
Do you think that a person in that situation has a responsibility to disclose that stuff earlier in the campaign?
Yes.
Or do you think...
You don't even need to finish that sentence.
Okay.
Like,
well, but I wasn't trying to lob a softball, because I actually do think that there's a counter argument that's like, hey, my arrest is public record. I paid my price. I did what I had to do legally, and I don't need to come out here and crucify myself over something I've already paid for. Somebody could make that argument.
I I know. Well, and I think that is it. I just feel like I'm obviously like an open book, right? I talk about all my shit, and I always say like, "Oh, I can't run for office because like some of the shit I don't talk about, like maybe would prevent me from holding a public office."
Right.
And I don't know. I just feel like I'm into this idea of like radical honesty, of like telling people what's up and letting people know and like getting ahead of it. And you know, we were talking earlier with the husband, aka my husband,
Mr. McCorkle.
Mr. McCorkle, episode, some other episode,
whatever
he was on. Doesn't matter. Who cares? So, but like using the example of like Bill Clinton and Obama, and I really like that though because it was like, okay, aside from all the other Bill Clinton stuff, but just that he was like, I never inhaled, and we were like, ha 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 ha, we'll vote for you anyway,
right?
Because we like weed or whatever. And then Obama was like, I love weed, I smoke weed, I was the leader of the Choom Gang, like that was my shit. And if you don't like that, oh well, like I did that, and that's fine, right?
Right.
And so I feel like people should know everything. So I do agree with that. If I had known what had happened with Chantel, would I still have voted for her? It's a hard question because you can't really know, but I think the answer would be yes. I do. Because it was a long time ago, and I think she got caught for her crime. And who knows what the heck was going on in her little underdeveloped brain at the time, right? And we just don't know. We don't know. And I just want to say, I guess, that Chantel, if you're listening, I support you and I'm proud to have voted for you. And I think that the way the criminal justice system penalizes Black and brown people, when this shit happens, we need to look about what was in place to encourage people to maybe not do the right thing. When you're born into a system of white supremacy that is stacked against you, like, if I didn't have a white mother, who the fuck knows what the fuck shit I would have did, okay? And I'm not allowed to talk about my family on here because they're all cease and desist, Rebekah. So I can't talk about some shit in my family, but I will say that if I were not half white, I don't know that I would be... No, I do know. I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have the education I have. Probably wouldn't even have the husband I have if I weren't half white. So I'm ready to not necessarily give people a pass, but I'm ready to give people empathy and understanding and support. And so that's my feeling on the matter. Anyway, we're going to have to... This shit getting too long.
It's a little on the long side.
It's hella long. So everybody going to have to just suck it up and listen to it. And then you're going to have to listen to Dominique Christina, and you're not going to be sorry that you did. Especially you, Kanye West. Off Color fam, we're really excited today because I'm always excited basically when I do this show because our guests are like so lit, and then today is extra lit because we have the world famous, award-winning poet, speaker, goddess, queen, Dominique Christina.
Hey.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Here, let's have a little cheers. Thank you so much for coming. Let's do a little toast.
Thank you
let people
so much
know,
for
okay?
having me.
Oh, this is like amazing.
Yes.
I like kind of can't believe it. I'm feeling a little starstruck. What can I say? You know, that's just how it happens sometimes. We get all kinds of people coming over here. White James like, I don't know. They got these two bold ladies here. Should I sit back and relax, or what should I do? Oh my gosh. So a couple of things I wanted to talk to you about. I mean, I've been wanting to have you on the show since the first time I met you. I met you at the Casbah with Kimberly Ming, who was on episode 8 back in the day over here on Off Color. So if you guys want to check that out, Kimberly Ming obviously is like this amazing poet. We love her. So I was amazed, obviously, like by your performance, your poetry, like your look, like everything about you was like dope. And I was like, who is this queen goddess? And then I like see you around, and then I stalk you a little bit, and like it's totally fine. Like everything's going fine now. You're at my house in my basement. My plan has worked. So I'm feeling pretty successful.
There you go.
And so you've been on my list because like James and I all have we like have lists of people that like we want to get on. You're like one of my like people, and so I'm really excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Really, and I did. I wanted to, there's like a bunch of stuff that we kind of want to talk about that's going on. But one thing I wanted to talk about before we even like maybe get into that is your new book. Because didn't you just do like a reading at Tattered Cover here in Denver?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
I did. It'll be out officially October 30th, published by Beacon Press, which has a home in Boston, Massachusetts. Yeah. 4th book, hardest book. Yeah, I'm proud of it.
So my understanding of what the book is about is it is about, her name is
Anarcha.
Anarcha.
Yep.
Anarcha Speaks. Is that the title?
That's the title.
I'm just checking. I'm trash.
No,
Sorry.
you're good.
I'm just like, I got flustered.
Well, yeah, like,
I got
it's
flustered.
okay. It's fine.
But the book is so, I just heard you reading from it, but even just the idea of it, that it's like told in the voice of an enslaved woman who was experimented upon.
Right.
Correct.
Right. So I found her by accident and had to exhume her or try. And she, once you come in contact with that sort of that unlit, unblessed part of our history, you kind of, or I feel a compulsion to try to exhume it and hold it under the light and see what lessons exist. And so she deserved a reckoning, and she deserved her own uninterrupted voice, because she really exists as footnote in history. She's really been relegated to the margins of history, and
so many of our
exactly right. So
ascendants.
That's right.
That's listening to your TED Talk.
All right. Look, so we gonna get along just fine. So yeah, it was that. I needed her to be in the center of the room, and I needed her to announce herself and say whatever is there. And she has a really urgent and necessary story, I think, because this was a young person. This was a 19-year-old who, suffered from trauma in labor and delivery, which was not uncommon, right? Like during chattel slavery, because of course you had no medical care, and labor was intensive, and oftentimes conception was non-consensual and traumatic. So when you put all those things together, tons and tons of labor and delivery disasters, right? And so she was pretty much, she was ripped from end to end. She had, vesicovaginal and rectovaginal tears, and the baby died. And there was this ambitious doctor who wasn't very good, to be honest. He'd lost several patients, and he didn't quite have a niche genre yet. He didn't know what he wanted to specialize in, but he knew he wanted to be popular and famous. And so he found in these enslaved women an opportunity to experiment on bodies that had no authorship over themselves, no consent, no ability to say no, or draw any lines in the sand. And so through his work with Anarcha and other enslaved women, he came up with what we now know as the speculum, and tons of things that he invented that are still a part of gynecological exams. Yeah. And he did that by torturous examinations on enslaved women. So I really needed Anarcha to be able to speak and announce herself, and to relegate Marion Sims appropriately into the dustbin of history, as opposed to her being only a footnote. Yeah.
So one of the things I was thinking about when you were discussing that was how this story, the idea of like exhuming these stories and showing them and having people's voices be heard. And of course I thought, this would make like a great film.
Yeah.
but I don't even think I could watch it.
Right, me too. I feel the same way. Right, I do. I think she needs to be afforded to take up as much space as possible. And this is an inconvenient story, right? Like, it's not palatable, it's not friendly, it doesn't go down smooth. I mean, it's inconvenient to interact with what happened to her. But I think she deserves to take up as much room as possible. I think she should be on the stage. I think she should be on the page. I think she should be in film. I think she should be in museums. I really do.
Yeah.
She deserves that. You know, that bleeding in silence thing, that template, however familiar, is also so incredibly problematic. And also the function of, you know, American history seems to me to be about, if you're not in a protected class, the blood splatter on the wall, we'll call a Monet and move on, you know, if we decide to look at it at all. You know, if we decide to interrogate the crime scene at all, we'll just call your blood splatter a Monet, pretty it up, and move on. And I don't want to do that anymore. I'm not interested in that.
Yeah, I hear you. I do. I'm just thinking, I'm like, you just said it, and I'm like, bleeding in silence. I'm like, the Anarcha story. I'm like, oh no, I think we made the movie. Who's ever listening to this, you owe the money.
You owe the money. Yep.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm encouraging everyone to order the book. I actually wanted to, and I probably should have told you this before, James. I'm like, no, but I wanna buy like 10 copies to give away for our for the Off Color family. So like, that's just amazing. To have people who are gonna do it. So I just wanted you to know that was something that I wanted to do, and I wanted to be like, let's just have it, and then we can like just give it to people. So that's anyway, awesome. So look out for that. Follow us on our Facebook page and our Twitter or whatever, and we'll let people know how that's gonna go. But I feel like the revolution is art. Like, I really feel that way, and I feel like that's something that's so important to me, and that's why like I make my film projects and I do this podcast and I talk to people and shit, because I feel like that's the way to like build empathy. And then I hate that question of like the question of our humanity.
That's right.
Like, and get to kind of go back to your work with Anarcha. I mean, for me as a mixed race person, that always like kind of influences my stuff around slavery. And even the changing of using the word of saying slaves, because that really stuck with me. And I heard it. It was this, and this is literally like maybe 2 years ago, where I heard someone talking on the radio about it and saying that they made the shift of stop saying slave to say enslaved people. This is something that was like done to them. They weren't born slaves. Nobody's born a slave. And I feel like even just that small shift in the language has helped me in some ways too, you know, because I grew up with like, that's the first time that I saw a representation of my family, of my father's family, is slavery.
Yeah, it's problematic. It really is, and it's stunting. It actually doesn't give you a whole lot of room to move or grow or imagine. The idea that you inherited this conquered person template, that's your beginning. Mm-hmm. That's the beginning of the story about who you are, right? Some conquered person shackled and chained to a stranger, right? Wallowing in the belly of a ship. That's your beginning. And if you inherit that, then it's really hard to imagine yourself as whole. It's really hard to imagine or dream yourself into being in a really wonderful way, in a wide way, in a supernatural way, because how dare you? Right? If you borrow bone and blood from somebody who was defeated, how are you supposed to win? But if in fact my story preceded the shackles, the branding iron, the slave ship, the transatlantic voyage, then maybe I have a chance. And so absolutely not slave, but enslaved. There was something that happened to those specific bodies. And what I know for sure, and I had to really travel the distance of this because again, language matters. I mean, it's a culture keeper, really. I mean, it can either be a noose or a tourniquet, depending on how you use it. And so for me, the idea that I come from at least one person who made the seismic choice to stay, to survive the unsurvivable. I mean, all you gotta do is look at, have clinical distance and research transatlantic slavery and find out how long those folks were on their backs in the dark. You know what I mean? Lying in their own shit and vomit, menses, sweat. Just research that. And then the only thing that I can come away with is I come from at least one superhero. Because you didn't have to stay. 6 million didn't. So you didn't have to stay. You could have died. You could have gone overboard, been eaten by the sharks. You could have died from disease. You could have succumbed to your own sorrow. But I come from at least one person who made the seismic choice to stay in the body long enough to get us here. There's no victim in that. There's no conquered person template in that. So I want to be about the exaltation, the people that we come from, that we borrow bone and blood from, the ones that we can sort of find the anthropomorphic evidence of when we look in the mirror. Those folks were supernatural. If they did nothing else, they walked on water in their ability to stay in the body when it would have been much easier to exit the body. So I want my work, my language, my personhood, my politics to reflect that as the focus. I know how impossible people can be. I know how supernatural we are. I know we're all capable of at least one miracle because we come from that.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah. Girl, put more drink in there. Here.
Okay.
Just drink that. Because I'm like, I gotta get through this. I gotta get through it. Because I really feel that. And so like last week or the week before, we went to go see the Hate U Give.
Okay.
Angie Thomas's book. They turned into a film. And we went to see it as like part of Curl Fest, the curly...
Sure. Not
Curl Fest. Curl Fest is my family's thing. Hey, Melly Mel. A curly weekend. But we did, after watching that film, and a lot of it deals with the shooting death of a young black man. That's like the kind of the crux of the story. And I was like weak the next day.
Okay.
Like I felt... It was like really emotional watching it because if you've ever lost someone to police violence, which I have, a family member, that makes you, just those traumas. Like it is what it is. But I've just been thinking about the traumas that's like in our bones and how we can make a miracle out of that, I guess, because even my husband, who's like a white presenting dude, but my husband is Jamaican and Jewish, so he got all kinds of stuff going on in there. And we went to see a pre-screening of this new movie that's coming out, The Green Book. And it was just like he was extra emotional during it because Viggo Mortensen, is like this Scandinavian dude, or he's Dutch. I don't know. They're all like the same to me. Mahershala Ali is also in the film, but it was just that that's our family. So, because we're like this, we're both from mixed race families, and so we're always like seeing our reflection or not seeing our reflection, right? Of course, yeah. And so in that film particularly, though, because that, oh my God, it's so good, by the way. And I usually don't say that. Yeah, it comes out Thanksgiving. It's like a free promo for the Green Book. Okay. But that's what it's about, traveling in the South. In 1962, it's based on true story. Okay. Of Dr. Shirley, the Don Shirley trio, or something like that. Anyway, all of this, I got to start over because I'm sorry, White James. You got to fix that. Okay. You got to fix it. Anyway, feeling carrying all of that stuff forward, and then I know, like, I always feel like, like my proximity to whiteness allows me all kinds of extra privileges that I'm well aware of. Sure. However, it doesn't take the memory or the pain out of me. You know what I mean? Like, so that's something that I can't believe I'm like 40 and now all of a sudden I'm like thinking of, like, I felt like this shit was like squared for me until I moved to Denver.
Interesting.
So that has been like
very interesting,
really deep for me. It's something I talk about a lot now here because I always talked about race because if you're mixed race, like, come on now, right? But it never...
Race is an interesting inheritance no matter who you are and what your melanin content is or what, path or cartography of your family. Like, it just really is a very interesting inheritance and a dizzying one, really. Because it's a made-up model, and we have had to adjust and acclimate, right? But it is a strange construct. This is just my truth. Like, so I don't want anybody to, like, send hate mail or go jumping off bridges, but it's just, it is, in fact, a construct.
Yes.
And when you acknowledge that we are, each of us, concepts, which is where you get the word conception from, right? Like, you are your parents' best idea. So when you are a concept and you spring into the world and then you inherit a construct and you are supposed to acclimate to it and let it tell the story of you, if it's not big enough to tell the story of who you are or who you intend to be, and you decide to buttress up against that construct, that's when you get, poorly behaved, maladjusted, problematic, mentally ill. That's when you get that. Those designations get attached to your body because you refuse to acclimate to this small, bite-sized version of the story that's supposed to make up the whole of who you are, and it's bullshit. And so there's a lot of pain and wounding in that, right? A concept acclimating to construct. Those words matter, and you have the evidence of that and the destruction that gets attached to construct all around you. A rainforest is the concept. If it is cleared in order to make room for a nightclub, that's the construct. The nightclub is the construct. In order for the nightclub to exist, you had to kill those trees. It's a painful process. Creating a construct is painful. You have to clear things away, erase certain things that are fundamental to who you are in order for the construct to exist. So I have that experience of race. I realize how I'm supposed to perform blackness. I do. I get that. I got that when I was a little girl. I understood that fully. Blackness means conquered, means broken, means slave, means sugarcane and cotton field, means crack of the whip, means yes massa. That's what it means. Means marching in the middle of the street in Alabama and Mississippi, means lynching, means noose. I knew that. Means apologetic. Means I'm sorry for taking up space. I realize I'm not supposed to be here. I understood that that's what blackness, that's how I was supposed to perform it. But I came from so many supernatural people who had done seismic things and risked much to just insist on themselves. And somewhere in there, I understood that blackness was an invention. And because it is an invention, I have room to superimpose myself onto the page and draft the narrative that best suits me, right? And so it really is it's an urgent conversation. Race is always going to be with us, right? And it's always going to be this urgent, pressing thing. And at the same time, there's always an invitation to interrogate it and deconstruct it and recognize sort of the flaws and the pitfalls in that inheritance. My mama is white passing. My grandfather was white passing. My grandmother was Native American, and she suffered from the displacement of that growing up and living in the colored section of Little Rock, but she wasn't black, so she didn't have belonging. You know what I mean? I come from that. I come from a father who's Panamanian who does not enjoy that. So he doesn't want to talk about that part of his identity. I come from all of those things, and somewhere in there I find myself. And she's fly and apologizes never for any of it. The complication of it, the beauty of it, the miracle in it, the chaos in it. It's all mine. And I have to figure out what to do with this inheritance and at the same time insist on myself the whole way. I don't know. I don't even remember what you said to make me say all that.
I'm like,
we've been drinking.
I'm like, this. No, but it feels so good. But it feels so good to hear that, because I feel like so much of my work is around deconstructing that. Yeah. And because, like, you look at my boy, right? And he is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid.
Yep.
And for me, that was like a lot. And I talk about it a lot on the show. I was like, what the hell? I'm like, how black can I be? Like, what happened?
Right.
You know? But then it made me feel like, but he is all of those things. He is that, you know, descendant of some kind of king, some kind of magical person, you know, that, because he looks just like my dad. Mm-hmm. He looks just like my dad. It's like so funny. Mm-hmm. And so, like, it doesn't mean anything, and it means everything. Yeah. And I just, it's so frustrating. And then I feel like in a city like this one, in such a segregated city, and a city that is not diverse, when there is someone who doesn't fit into the box, then it's like we're not even seen. Yeah. You know, and it's been that for me has been a huge challenge of living here. And my husband understands it, and he did do an episode of the show if anyone wants to listen to him talk a bit about it. Mm-hmm. That was the Coachella but whiter episode. We went to the Fort Collins Music Festival, and that was crazy. Oh. Have you ever been to that? No. Don't go there. Okay, I won't. I'm sorry. Fort Collins, you effed it up. Okay? Yeah. You made us very uncomfortable. Yep. Okay. You can check that episode out later. Okay. So, when you were speaking, though, I was thinking about two things went across my mind. One, because you're just like this pure artist, like personified, just like sitting in my house, like making it beautiful, right? And so, I was also thinking about, because you're like, oh, politics, whatever. But I didn't know if you had heard about Elizabeth Warren's thing with her Native American stuff. I don't know. We didn't get a chance to talk about it on here, but I was thinking about it only because that shit was like crazy to me. Mm-hmm. The whole thing from start to finish, you know, like of them calling her Pocahontas and shit. I'm like, what the fuck is that? Now we're going to just... Okay. This was up. That's fine. And then I don't care if she's Native American or not. Like, that is irrelevant to me. Right. Like, I don't care. But it was just so crazy to me. I don't understand why she then went and did that DNA test. Can someone explain that to me?
Well, it's performative and it's reactionary. And I think we can fall into that. And... more easily than we realize. What's interesting about it is white folks doing it. I think people of color have been doing that for a really long time, trying to figure out how to enter into the room or enter into a conversation and stuff. I can tell you that I've got 25%, Icelandic in my ancestry. Maybe you'll be able to hear me better. I don't know. But it's inverted now. And now you have... folks who appear to be white people, trying to make sure you understand that they have some indigeneity in their bones. It's very interesting to me. Fundamentally, I'm repelled by that on either side, though. Right? Because again, it goes back to you're legitimizing the question of if your existence and your identity is legitimate, and then you, by answering it, legitimize the question. I have a problem with that. Mm-hmm. I really do. I have a fundamental problem with that. The who am I question is already complicated. No matter who you are, no matter where you grew up, no matter what your parents look like or where they traveled from, it's already complicated. It produces existential crisis for most of us. When you drill down into the meat of it, the marrow of it, who am I? That should produce some anxiety. Right? So then to try to like figure out how you can gain legitimacy by clamoring for this 14% of insert tribe here is crazy to me. I just think it's a reaction, again, to the construct of race and racism, which is a dizzying, insane construct. I mean, I remember growing up in and playing with Black girls who let me know, sometimes cruelly, sometimes silently and indirectly, but they always let me know what my hair was doing was a problem for them and caused them pain.
Mm-hmm.
How white passing my mama was caused them pain.
Mm-hmm.
My private schooling caused them pain. How English delivered out of my mouth caused them pain. And I didn't want to be separate and apart from Black girls. I really didn't. And I didn't want to contribute to them feeling less than or othered in any way. But the thing that was contributing to that was stuff I couldn't control, was stuff I was born with, And so I had to figure out what to do with all of that. And by the time I got to be a teenager and into college, I was trying to figure out how to walk into rooms and make sure that all the Black people in the room knew I was them. And how did I do that? Well, I was trying to pick my hair out. I threw an Africa tattoo on my arm. I was trying to be as Black as possible, performatively Black. And that's it. It was painful and it was problematic and it was a costume. It was a reaction to the awful inheritance, right, of racism that affects everybody. And I had to let that go. I don't want to perform Blackness. I don't want to have to convince anybody, Black or white, that my existence is legitimate. I don't want to do that. Because if I have to do that, then it means you have a question about it. You have a question about my right to exist? My right to be? I can't have that. I can't participate in that. If you have that question, you're too stupid a person for me to talk to. I can't answer back to that, But that's a hard lesson, and I had to travel a great distance to land there. I really did, because we all inherited that construct, and then we had to figure out how we were going to maneuver. And if you say, I'm Black, but you look like you do, automatically there are questions, complications, confrontations. It's hard, I know you know. It's hard. And it's stupid. My grandfather was white passing. All of his brothers and sisters were white passing. They were deliberately Black in the Jim Crow South, where they would interrupt this idea that they were white. White people would come up all the time and talk to them assuming whiteness, and they would have to be like, except, right? I'm actually Black. They did that willfully. I understood the weight of that. I understood the risk-taking behavior in that. I think I fetishized that. And I think as a little girl, I determined that was this really heroic thing to do. Because it wasn't the easy or convenient route. But at the end of the day, it's still you're being pinned against a wall and forced to react to an insane, illegitimate construct. And if at any point you can break free from that narrative that gets attached to your body, no matter its melanin content or what your hair is doing, whether it has a deep curl or no bend at all, right? The quicker you can get out of that and recognize your right to exist and your legitimacy on this planet and your right to the world, man, the better. And if you can raise kids who never have to ask or answer that question, that's dope. That's really dope.
Oh my God. Help. I was like, I need therapy. Because I feel it, but I do feel like go into spaces here, but it's like been very specific to me in Denver.
Sure.
Where I feel like, I have to be like, I got to wear my African earrings or perform blackness. To me, it doesn't feel like a performance. I'm like,
No,
this is
I
some
get
shit.
what you're saying.
This is some shit I like.
Yeah.
You know, and I got into it one time on the old Twitters because I had my kid going for his school picture, wearing his little dashiki outfit that we bought him when he was still in my belly at Juneteenth. And I was like, oh, I want to get this. And then we had to wait until he could finally wear it. And so when he had this little jacket on, and he was so cute, and I had him with his little fist up in the air, take a picture, and people were like, this dude was like, oh, this is a problem. And I'm like, well, guess what? I'm like, why shouldn't we wear African prints? Like, I don't, and I'll talk extensively about cultural appropriation. First of all, I'm not making any money on it. The only person making money on it was the person that,
that you paid for the dashiki.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But so that's kind of part of how I see it. But I also see it as like, I feel like I know enough people from the continent of Africa to know that nobody is mad if you're wearing some like African print.
No doubt. But let me just say this real quick. I might be drunk enough to say this.
Say it.
Some hate mail.
Oh God, if you hate on my baby's dashiki though, it's gonna be a problem.
No, I don't. I don't. It's not that.
Real cute in it.
I think where I struggle is this idea that anybody, anywhere, at any point, can weigh in on how we elect to be relative to Africa, to the mother. I have a problem with that because it's like it's we were orphaned, and we don't know her like we want to know her. She didn't raise us. And like any orphan, there's some part of you that clamors for the mother. You want to know her. You want to know why you didn't have her. You want to know why she didn't raise you. You want to know why you didn't receive the same benefits that the kids who weren't taken from her got. There's a hurt in you. There's a wounding and a bruising there because you have been orphaned. But to then condemn the orphan for how they elect to re-engage the mother is crazy to me. There are going to be some of us who were orphaned and we're like, I don't trust that chick. She left me. She let me go. Her love is not sufficient. And they throw their middle finger up and they get to.
Yeah.
And then there are some of us who just want something of a relationship, however fickle, however fleeting. What are the patterns she adorns herself in? How does she pray? What is the music she celebrates? Let me try that on. Seeking some sort of proximity, some sort of relativity to the mother. And we get to. And so I really don't think it's appropriate to prescribe or dictate to anybody who has lost their mother what they get to do to seek her face, or to condemn those who choose not to seek her face. I think that's problematic. As an orphan, as an African American, I am neither fully. I am not African fully. I have never felt that I was American fully. What I know for sure is that I live out loud in the hyphen, and you can't tell me shit about what I do in that space in between the two. And how I marry those two realities, and how I question or quarrel with those two realities. You can't tell me shit. Because I had a Middle Passage experience. I came from somebody who negotiated a ship on their backs, and we are an invention. We're an American invention.
Girl, I'm like crying over here. I'm feeling it. I'm thinking about you, White James, and just your family. Yeah. So, sorry. I'm like thinking about that. Your daughters and stuff.
Oh.
So, yeah. So, sorry. But anyway, I just feel like, I'm like, oh shit. I love that. Because like, I love that. That hyphen. Have you written that down? Is that a poem you've written? Somebody help me. I'm like, oh my God. Goddamn genius up in here. Help. Okay.
It's the hyphen.
No, but I feel like that's so much like about, anyway, so I love that. And because lately I've been saying, but it is because I feel like I have to qualify it. I'll say I'm Black mixed, even though I grew up like my whole life just saying I'm Black, because that's how I grew up. My parents, that's just what it was. And so now I'll be like, oh, because if I don't say it, then I have to like
deal with stuff. Yeah.
I have to deal with it, and I don't want to deal with it. I just want to get access to my space and to my people, because sometimes I'm so worn out from living in Denver that sometimes like I just want to be in a space where I feel like everyone is beautiful and I feel like I'm part of this community too. You know? And here I feel really like
othered.
To the max, you know?
I get it.
You know, my poor kid.
I get it.
This is gonna be.
I do.
We don't know what's gonna happen with him too, because sometimes the change.
Well, my nephew is blonde and blue-eyed too, and he had to go through some stuff. But ultimately, like, you know, fundamentally, Logan had to get on the other side of allowing anybody anywhere to question his right to exist or to claim his space. Yeah. Or how he chooses to answer that "who am I" question, which is such a quintessential question. Yeah. Right?
Well, I'm not having it. And that's one of my other things, like that, what are you? Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. Like, and now, and I used to just like, I used to answer it, and I don't anymore.
Good for you.
You know what I mean? I'm just like...
Yeah, good for you.
They can't see me as a podcast, but my face, I'm always like, I'm not answering that. I'm sorry. Because, you know, but then there's times when white supremacy and our systems obliges me to answer that question, even though I don't want to. Yeah. Like in my place of employment. Yeah. And I'll get a feeling where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I could make this could go really badly for me right now. So I'm just going to back it off of it. Yeah. But it's just a hard thing. This idea. Anyway. Okay. Because I feel like now, girl, you just gave me a lot of things to think about for myself around like race and identity. And also, I'm going to stop telling people that I'm Black. I'm just going to be myself.
Yeah, I mean,
but part of being myself is to tell people I'm Black, so I think I'm gonna actually stick with it. Never mind.
I think the answer can change every day, and I think that's the piece. I think we get hammered by this idea that we have to be singular. We have to land on this one thing and commit to it. I mean, for me, the greatest wounds in my life came from, with respect to my womanness and my ethnicity. It was like, so you're saying you need me to, like, you know, chop all this complexity down into something palatable and bite-sized so you can comprehend my existence. And if I don't want to do that, we got a problem. Yeah. I don't want to do that. I actually don't want to do that. My womanness is vast and complicated. My Blackness and my identity is vast and complicated. You're going to have to deal with me or get out of the way. But what I'm not going to do is explain too much or apologize ever. I'm just not. I'm not. There's no room for that. I have no questions or no lingering questions about my right to exist. You know?
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Have you heard of a performer called Kanye West?
Sounds familiar.
I think we're pronouncing that right. Kanye.
Yay. So no, but I know, but sometimes, okay, so I have all these like artist type friends that roll around, and sometimes I'll ask them something and they'll be like, who? And they don't know some things in popular culture, right? Yeah. Or right. So I'm gonna go with that. You do know who Kanye
West. I do, actually, yes. I do.
And so he's been a little bit off the rails for quite some time now, it seems like. Yeah. And it, for me, you know how you feel like you know an artist because their music or something just touch you so much, right? Yeah. So that, he had that song, the one I used to love, the When It All Falls Down. Mm-hmm. Remember that one? Mm-hmm. That was like my shit. Like I loved that song. I was just like obsessed with it. Like I played it a million times a day, blah, 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 right? And so I just like loved him. And then when he like broke out, you know, with the College Dropout album, like I just feel like that shit was like, whoa. Like I was like, we are in like it was like
in the presence of greatness.
Yes, okay. I really felt like that.
Ditto, me too.
And I was just blown away by him.
Okay, me too.
And then I still felt like he still, like, to me, he is, like, in that remember that interview where he was like, leather jogging pants, and it was like, everyone was like, he's off the rails. I was like, yo, leather jogging pants is dope. Like,
I agree with that, too.
What can I say? I like to look
I
good
agree
when I'm
with that
working
as
out.
well. Yes.
That seems like the good old days now.
It does.
Yeah.
So, but now with what's going on, I feel, I don't know if you've seen anything about what's going on. Have you seen anything in the news about him? Or not in the news, but in your, I don't know, artist dispatch that you get. I don't know.
My artist dispatch. Artist dispatch. Okay. I mean, so context. So my mother just retired. She's a professor of African American studies. And when I was in undergrad and Chicago State was still hosting the Black Women Writers Conference, which Donda West was curating, my mother was helping to facilitate. I actually met Kanye my senior year of undergrad along with his mother, and he was just a dude in the room with a backpack on, right?
Yeah.
And then a year later, everybody knew his name. And he read a poem.
Yeah.
You know, finger quotes. He read a poem. It was more like a rap to kind of give you a sense of who he was about to be. At the Chicago State Black Women Writers Conference. And he was brilliant. And in his body, and tethered to his community. Mm-hmm. And I think that he doesn't have that anymore. And I'm always trying to hold a space of empathy for him, because a lot of us get lost, you know? We're all one tragedy away from doing something really fucking questionable and stupid. Really. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know? Something that really is counterintuitive to who we are as individuals, right? And so I try to hold that space, you know? Like, I fortunately don't know what it's like to lose your mama, you know? And who was such a culture keeper for Kanye, and she's gone. And I don't know what it's like to exist in this sort of scripted parallel universe environment where it's all sort of made for reality TV. Mm-hmm. I don't know anything about that. I think Kanye is the cautionary tale. Yeah. Fellow Gemini, so I'm like, shit.
Gemini.
Let me make sure I don't do none of that. But you know, but so then you understand that there's a level of mania that we operate from, that if we're in our bodies well enough, we can make it magic. But if we're not, it's mayhem. So it's a very thin line between those two things. Do you get that?
I do. And one of the things, and I'll never, after the Taylor Swift incident,
sure,
right? He was on Jay Leno, and I didn't have cable or anything, and that's why, like, I think I just had it on, and I saw it, and I have never felt a rage in my life towards Jay Leno like I felt in that moment when he was like, what would your mother say? And this was like just after his mom had died. Sure. And this is some shit I feel like people don't even fucking remember, but I remember it because I was so disgusted by it. Yeah. And I was like, if Kanye were white, would he have fucking asked a question like that? Acting like he's a boy? Like that, what would your mother have said? Right. And to bring that up when I know, and I don't know him, but I'm assuming he feels guilty that he had a part in her death because she was the money, the surgery, you know, just doing that stuff. And so, like, I remember being so furious about that and not, like, giving a shit about his, like, somewhat questionable behavior, okay? Because I didn't care. I was like, this is too painful. And you said, you don't know what it's like to lose your mom, and I do. And you're just gone.
Right. That part, right?
Right? And so
there it is. So there's a breadcrumb trail that just stops. It's interrupted. And a compass that's lost to you, right? I'm very empathetic to that. And I think, and I'm not here to make excuses. Bad behavior, questionable decisions, right? But I just know for sure that Donda West was that compass for Kanye. She was the thing that tethered him to his body and to his community. And he doesn't have it, okay? So who we have now is this superstar who lives in this contrived, super constructed environment where perception is everything and reality is not as important as Twitter likes or Twitter followers. And he has decided that it is radical and risk-taking and forward-thinking to promote and exalt Donald Trump because his community hates Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Right? So like you can't go to Southside Chicago and find people who like Donald Trump. You just can't. So Kanye thinks I'm being forward-thinking. This is the evidence of how progressive and like groundbreaking that I am. I'm willing to look for the good in this man. It was Trump and not Obama who made me think I could be president. Now, I hear that and go, you're crazy. But it deserves interrogation. This is what I really think. I really believe I believe that Kanye does not do enough interrogation. I think he is the king of knee-jerk. I think he is inspired by the idea that if I can figure out a way to love someone that my community hates, I may be able to shift their thinking, or at the very least, you will have to regard me as some sort of, I don't know, icon, a purveyor of, a visionary, a purveyor of cultural and social change. There are things that Kanye says, he doesn't have a deft touch, right? So there are things that Kanye says that legitimately interrupt people and offend them. Slavery is a choice.
Oof.
Offensive, right? But let me say this. Again, hate mail. Okay. The institution of slavery could only exist if every single morning, every enslaved person on that plantation woke up and re-enrolled in that idea. There's no quarrel or debate about what I just said. You might not like how it lands, but it's just the truth. The institution of slavery depended on subservience. It couldn't survive rebellion. The same way that the prison industrial complex can't survive rebellion. Mathematically, it's impossible. You can't survive it. If the prisoners wake up and decide they are no longer interested in your politic or your rules or how you have decided to view them, you don't have prison anymore. 50 guards to 500 inmates, mathematically, it's a done deal, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, same thing with chattel slavery. I mean, we got to talk about it. We can talk about all of it. Mathematically, you had to make a slave, which is why, again, as you pointed out earlier, language is important. You had to make a slave. That's an enslaved person. That process matters. You have to get me to align myself with how you see me. So that I wake up every day and I don't resist the shackles. I don't resist the branding iron. I don't resist the barbed wire. I don't resist the prison number. You're right about me. I'll stay right here. I'll trust you more than I trust the people who are negotiating the same leg irons and chains. That's how you make a slave, and that's also how you make an inmate. Mm-hmm. Kanye doesn't have a deft touch, but I believe he was trying to sort of touch that conversation, right? 400 years of a system that required your subservience. If you woke up that morning and said, fuck it, ain't no slavery. This plantation right here is burning. We know that though, because there were incidents of rebellion, right? Nat Turner and others who were like, yeah, I'm cool, not doing that. And then you didn't have it anymore. But there were a lot of bodies as a consequence, right? So I think Kanye touches his brilliance often, but I think he stops as soon as he has that first epiphany and he doesn't chase it down. You know what I mean? To its logical conclusion. So he goes, slavery is a choice. And you're like, hold up, fam. Let's unpack that. Nobody chooses that. But what you're really trying to say is that There's no shame in being broken or overwhelmed when one is overwhelmed, but there is a shame in not rising up when the opportunity presents itself. You know, there is something problematic about that. Your failure to see that there's an opportunity for you to break that chain and to declare yourself free. That's the conversation he's trying to have, but it's a difficult, nuanced conversation, and I don't think he has enough of what is required to have it. So he throws out these sound bites, and we are destabilized by it. I am destabilized by it. There are lots of appropriate and legitimate conversations to have about the Democratic Party and how it has failed, how short-sighted it has been for a long time.
Yeah.
But it does require a lot of political acumen and nuance, and Kanye West doesn't have it.
Well, I just heard.
Well, nor does his best friend Donald Trump.
Nor does
So
his
the
best
fact
friend
that that's who
Trump.
he's aligned
That's
himself
exactly
with doesn't
right.
help.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right. But Kanye goes, this is a businessman who flies in the face of public perception. And some part of him resonates with that template. And he doesn't, because he's already existing in privilege, he doesn't see a need to interrogate beyond that first point. Business guy, doesn't care how you feel about him. I like that.
Yeah.
Privilege drives that. That's a short-sighted assessment. If you live in the projects and you realize he's pulling money out of things that give you food, give you daycare, then there's some nuance that you have, right? He's not a hero. But Kanye exists in privilege, so he doesn't have to interrogate any of that. He just goes, he's a billionaire who doesn't care how you feel about him. I relate to that. I don't like Twitter dummies either. I don't like trolls either. I want to be about my money too. I don't care what people think about me either. That's all he has to do. That's all he's relating to. You know?
You are like over here like blowing my mind. I'm like, how can we get Dominique in the room with Kanye to help him? How can we do it? You think he could be helped? James looking at me funny. Go ahead.
No, I don't know. But I think he does have that Donald Trump thing where he believes whoever is the last person he spoke to. That
I do
seems
too.
to be part of it. But
I do too.
I would like to think that this whole thing is about radical love and acceptance. Because there's a big part of me does connect with that. If someone can speak to radical acceptance and choosing to love somebody that other people hate, there's something really deep in that. Unfortunately, I do feel like it's more like what you were just talking about, which is that he just wants to be him.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. It lacks critical analysis. I think that's what I would say. And again, Southside Chicago Kanye, backpack rapper still trying to make it, clamoring for relevance, would never.
Yeah.
But he's not that anymore. He exists in privilege, so now he can relate to privilege. I don't have to think. That's the nature of privilege. I don't have to look at the bodies underneath. I don't have to care about what your plight is, what the specificity of your, existence is, what you negotiate, what vouchers you got to use to eat, or what your rent. I don't care. I don't have to care. That's the nature of privilege. It never has to look down. That's the nature of it. That's the function of it. It never has to look down. Listen, there are some people who come from the projects, come from abject poverty, have experienced racism at its height, at its most insidious, its most nefarious, and they rise to meteoric fame. And some part of how they're constructed in their core refuses to let them forget what it was like to be in those tenement buildings. It's not a place of shame. It's not a thing that makes me loathe myself. It's a thing that tethers me to my identity. It gives me a sense of home and how I got here. There are artists that do that all the time. I think Jay-Z does that. I think Kendrick Lamar does that. They came from the projects. Kendrick Lamar is Compton. Jay-Z is Marcy Projects. They are that. But they don't lament that trajectory. They let it tether them. Right? Kanye, it created a wound for him. You think I'm not enough. That was back when you thought I wasn't anybody. When I wasn't anything. When you wouldn't listen to me. It creates a wound and a bruise for him. So the only thing he wants to do is remove himself from that stigma and make sure you understand that he is prolific and he deserves to be in the room with you. He is Walt Disney. He is Steve Jobs. All you gotta do is listen to how he describes himself. That's somebody who at his core is so terrified that you might remember when he didn't have lunch money. You know, when he didn't see his daddy enough. When somebody put a gun on him that day and stole the sneakers off his feet and he was too scared to respond. He is so terrified of that memory that he has to reconstruct everything. And what better way to do that than to identify fully with a billionaire who clutches his nuts and says, I don't care about how you feel. There's no better way to do that.
Yep.
You know? I don't know. It's complicated. It's complicated. There are those individuals who, again, who don't look at the distance that they've traveled as some liability. I'm going to think of that as an opportunity to be tethered to this body, this reality, and to practice gratitude. I used to be there. I'm here now, but it doesn't mean I hate the people who are still there.
Yeah.
And then there are others who were like, hey, don't bring up where I came from. That's crazy. I'm over here now. You know?
Yeah.
I live in Silicon Valley. The fuck you mean? Don't talk to me about Southside Chicago. I am not that dude anymore.
Yeah.
You know? It's that. There's two ways, you know what I mean, to enter that conversation. And one is from a place of, I'm still trying to convince you that I matter. And the other one is, I always mattered. It didn't matter what my area code was or what food stamps my mama got. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah. I just, it's been, obviously this is something that like drives everybody crazy if you know, like I loved what you said. You're like, that destabilizes us. I'm like, cause it does, cause we're like, what the fuck? And then I can't like pay attention to other stuff that I like should be paying attention to. Like, I don't know, ain't gonna be no water for my kid to drink. Like, like we have like real serious problems in our like environment, you know? That's something I sometimes I bring it up. I feel like I've said it before, but like in college, like I remember like the environmental group, they were like, come join our group. And I'm like, nah, I'm like, that's for white people. I'm over here doing this. And now I'm like, yeah, I made a mistake. Like we should have all been focusing on that. Like on the earth. And like food, water, and everyone having enough stuff. But anyway, then I'll start doing my doomsday thing again. So I'll be quiet. Jane.
Yeah.
I
mean, you can choose resistance or collaboration. Kanye chose collaboration. I'll collaborate with the dude that's in power.
Yeah.
And then there are other people who are like, I choose to resist the dude that's in power.
Yeah.
He chooses to collaborate.
Yeah. So
he needs that proximity.
And that's the thing,
he needs that
though.
legitimacy.
It's really ironic that anybody can think it's radical or revolutionary to align yourself with the President of the United States.
Sure.
That's a really strange thing to me. But that's like the time we're in where, I mean, his marketing of himself as some kind of minority figure is amazing. And I guess Trump's people are the minority in this country, but it's not exactly a tiny minority. And he's the most powerful person in the world, possibly. So it's very strange that it's a radical pose to sit in the Oval Office with the guy who's president of the United States.
It is if you're a black dude who said George Bush doesn't care about black people. You know,
I miss you, Kanye.
Yeah, I miss the old Kanye.
Me too. I really do.
But like, it's that. It's radical then.
Right.
You know, the backpack rapper said George Bush doesn't care about black people and was having political conversations about Hurricane Katrina and economic disparities and environmental racism and all of that because he still felt tethered to that because his mama was still in the world. But when you remove those references and that compass, that breadcrumb trail, and you have arrived You don't have to actually care.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When you can practice willful disremembrance of the projects and the dudes you grew up with, who you know will never make it out, they'll die or they'll go to jail right there. You know they'll never be you. They'll never be you. And you can disavow yourself from that tragedy and sit across from the most powerful man in the world, and he says, Kanye can speak for me anytime. If you're performing from a specific wound, that's all the legitimacy you need. That's all the legitimacy you need. The most powerful man in the world said, I can speak for him anytime. I don't care what mass graves are underneath that statement. I've arrived. I get invited to dinner. I don't care how y'all feel about me. I win. I win.
Well, I'm looking at this.
What is happening?
Blexit.
Brexit. Black people exiting from the Democratic Party. Okay. All right, that's fine. Okay.
This is his thing. I'm looking at this dude like, oh no, Robbie, you look lost in your eyes. Look at his eyes. Tell me that dude does not look lost in his eyes.
Yeah, blink twice if you need help. Yeah, that's what it looks like.
So that's a campaign. Kanye designed all the logos and clothes for that.
Yeah.
That just came out today. I think.
Listen, I don't have a problem with interrogating and challenging whatever is antiquated about the Democratic Party. There are things that are antiquated about it.
Yes.
There are things that need to be interrupted.
Yes.
I don't have a problem with that, actually. I really don't. And I think our party is beleaguered, our country is beleaguered with partisanship. I really do. So I'm okay with you questioning. I'm okay with you asking Democrats or the Democratic Party to rise to a higher standard, to move the needle forward, to not be a party that normalizes, I don't know, victimization. Because that's the critique. Candace Owens and people like that who say the Democratic Party is the party of, black people and brown people, trying to keep them on the welfare system, right? Trying to keep them begging and on their knees and requiring assistance from the state in order to function. I'm cool with having that conversation. There's some legitimacy to that, right? But again, we're talking about the necessity of nuance. And this broad stroke declaration that black people need to run crying for the hills away from the Democratic Party is the absence of nuance. It lacks critical analysis. Running away from the Democratic Party into what?
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Into what?
So, because even I was talking, I'm thinking, I'm like, well, we need a new party. Let's call it like the People's Party or something like that. And then we're going to
Where you going? Where you going?
We don't have it. We don't have it.
And I think that's where the problem lies with Kanye. I don't really think people are mad at him on a partisan basis. There are any number of voices in art and in hip hop and anywhere speaking against the Democratic Party, but they're not posing for photo ops with people making white power signs.
That's right.
And it's a very different. I think Kanye would like to frame it as if people are persecuting him because he's anti-Democrat, but I don't see that as being the conversation.
That's not it.
Yeah.
No, we're all just like, we want you back, Kanye. We just want you back, buddy. We miss you. And I'm not even going to lie, I wasn't even mad about the Kim Kardashian, the Kim Ye. I'm like,
No, I don't. The Taylor Swift thing, too. People were so mad about the Taylor Swift thing. I thought it was rude, but
I did too.
I wasn't upset about it. I don't know.
Right. But the vitriol towards him was based in white supremacy.
No doubt.
So
No doubt.
that's all. Like, that to me is...
I have to pee. You all too. You keep talking about it.
Yeah.
I'll be right back. I'm gonna be quick. I'm gonna wash my hands too.
The mother thing is real, though. I don't like to psychoanalyze strangers or whatever, but I don't know if you heard the interview, like last year, he went under for the same voluntary liposuction that killed his mother. And you're just like,
oh my God, I had
wow, talk about someone just trying to relive a trauma, just trying to like walk back through it. And it was like at the same time he gave the Donda West Foundation basically a way to someone else to run, and then killed all the funding for it. So he killed his mother's own foundation. And it's like there's some Freudian shit in there of him trying to like relive this death over and over again.
So
it's like
crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Like but I just know that.
It's crazy. I know too much about the Kanye stuff. But so Rhymefest, the rapper who wrote Jesus Walks, Kanye, that's another rapper's song.
Yeah.
Kanye just took it.
Yeah.
Paid him, but took it. His kind of consolation to Rhymefest was he gave him the Donda West Foundation to run and then stopped funding it. And then Rhymefest had to come out publicly and be like, you've killed this thing that's in your mother's name. And that was like a couple months later, we got the Trump thing. So it's like, it's all Donda related, like all of it. I believe
it. I believe it. I've always felt like that had to have been so heartbreaking. My heart broke for him, and that was years before my mom died, and I'm just like, now I have more, and I feel like I do have empathy for him in a way that like I maybe wouldn't expect myself to have, but I do. I feel like I'm like, oh, poor guy.
Do you ever wonder how you would feel if he was still putting out music you liked? Because I wonder about that sometimes, how much of it is just like, I'm old and I was the right age when the College Dropout came out and I didn't get Jesus and I don't get these new records. If he put out a record today that I liked as much as I like the College Dropout, I would be feeling some real internal, right? But
That is deep. No, you're right. I'm like, yeah. Why James just asked like how maybe we might feel differently like if he'd put out an album that we like really liked.
Not me.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, no, I can, as an artist and a creative, I still hear the genius in Kanye West, even when it's something I don't like. And I guess there's some part of me that recognizes that I am just mere inches away from my own set of questionable decisions. I mean, like, I think it's almost some antiquated trope now, but the idea that like the thing that drives your creative genius is an inch away from that which would put you in a straitjacket. I mean, it really is. I mean, I'm manic as fuck. I don't write in some casual, convenient fashion. It pours out of me feverishly. I don't eat. I don't sleep. I don't talk to people. Like there's a mania that seems to walk right next to, the creative process. And I think the only thing that spares me from the kinds of what I would posit as missteps, political missteps for Kanye West, is that I still have my mama and my family, and I'm not seeking to be regarded as some rabble-rousing agent provocateur. I'm actually not seeking that. But I think Kanye is. I think he wants to make sure he is here to change culture, to shift paradigm. If that's your intent, then you have to sort of buttress against that which has been normalized and even that which is legitimate. You have to. But if you're not seeking to be an agent provocateur, and you just want to create and see what happens, I'm floating an idea. We'll see what it does, I'm creating this thing, I'm cultivating it, we'll see which seeds germinate. Then it's different. Kanye has always been interested in leaving his mark as being this groundbreaking, cage rattling, paradigm shifting, room interrupting figure. He's always needed to be seen. Always.
Stop looking in my soul, please.
I'm just saying he's always needed to be seen, and he's always needed to be regarded as brilliant, which is very different from people who are in fact brilliant, and they're like, I'm gonna create this and you'll get there on your own.
Right.
You'll recognize the magic in it. And that's when I go back to the people like Jay-Z and Kendrick. They make an album, they're here for a minute and you don't see them anymore because they're raising their kids or living, you know what I'm saying, doing what the fuck they got to do. Those artists are not trying to prove anything to you. Mm-hmm. I'm in the service of my gifts, dog. I wrote this. It meant something to me. Maybe it'll mean something to you. Here it goes. That's it. And then I'm back to the crib. Kanye needs you to buy into the idea that he is the most relevant, the most brilliant, the most extraordinary. Nicki Minaj does too.
Yeah.
That's why she's so interrupted by Cardi B. Well, you ain't gotta be. There could be more than one Supreme. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It really can.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's a really antiquated notion. That because there's one fly chick, there can't be another? What? Doing the same stuff? I want everybody to eat. But when you see somebody who is interrupted by that, they're still trying to prove to you that they are talented, that they're brilliant, and that they're relevant. That's what Kanye's doing. And he's doing it in ways that we don't understand, or that we don't appreciate, or that we acknowledge from our place. It's dangerous. Yeah. It's dangerous for you to stand in the Oval and tell this man he made you feel like a superhero because of a fucking hat. It's actually dangerous, dog. That's really problematic. It's really uninterrogated politics you're operating from. There's going to be people who suffer as a result of this rhetoric. You know what I mean? Like, you are very rhetorically unsound, but you won't bleed from the consequences of what you said. Other people will. That's where we get to play.
Right.
He doesn't have to pay attention to any of that. That's what I'm saying about privilege.
Well, it's also fame. I mean, I know the level of fame Kanye has would drive me crazy.
I would love it. That's why I got scared when you were talking.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know, because you guys are like artists for real, y'all. I'm just like...
I know. Well, I mean, first of all, I'm never going to be as famous as Kanye. Thankfully, I'm not cursed with like that level of talent and influence and things like that.
I don't want any part of that.
If I got that famous, I would lose my shit. I know I would.
No, because there's a level of social isolation that you have to talk about. And I mean, I have a scintilla of understanding. But I can tell you, it is always dizzying and destabilizing for me when I walk onto a college campus and there's this individual who shows up in front of me and everything about the language they're curating is that they know me. You know? I'm your what? I'm your mama. I'm your soulmate. I'm your best friend. It's like we grew up together. Because of some poems. Some poems. And you think you know me. And you think we have a relationship.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to acquiesce to your idea. You know? And you don't know me at all. I never feel more alone than when I'm performing. That's the interesting dissonance that it creates. Because I'm standing in a room bleeding and people are clapping. That's what's happening every time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? People are clapping and I'm bleeding. I'm revealing the most hidden, the most secret, the most unresolved parts of who I am. And people are going, woo, right? And then they come up to me and they think that they already know who I am in the world because they related to a handful of poems. And that's but a scintilla of what people like Kanye negotiate. What do you do with that data when you can't walk into a restaurant anymore and just have a meal? You actually can't go to 7-Eleven to grab a Slurpee real quick. You actually can't go into a barbershop. You got to pay for the whole day to be shut down so you can go in there and get your hair cut. Can't be anybody else in there that day. You know? What's that like? To not be able to have the normal sort of pedestrian interactions that hold a lot of magic for us, actually. A lot of poetry in that, you know? When you're able to stand in line in the convenience store and see this woman in front of you, and you look her in her eyes, and in that moment, you kind of feel like you maybe know what she's carrying, you know? Or she maybe reminds you of your mama. You don't get to have any of those moments.
Yeah.
All the stuff that's poetic about humanity and the stuff that makes up our personhood is no longer available to you. You have to have a driver. You have to have an assistant. You have to have an intern.
Oh my God, there's something wrong with me because everything you're saying, I'm like, that sounds so good.
I don't want
I'm like,
any
who's
of that.
coming here to do my hair?
I don't want any of that.
And that goes to what you were talking about. I mean, that's why an interviewer will ask Kanye about his mother because he heard Hey Mama and is like, well, there's a song about that, and I know everything you went through, and I know what it's about, and you know, that's. I mean, I take some. So you know, Kanye isn't going to hear this interview. It's hard to imagine that he ever would. But there's even part of me that's like, I don't know this guy. I'm sitting here talking about his dead mom and how he relates to it, and it's yeah, you give away a part of yourself, to everybody.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. I mean, I just think there's a lot here.
I think Kanye is going to hear this because I think he needs to hear it. I'm serious. I think the universe is going to put it in his ear because I think that he would like to hear this. So I think that it is going to go to his ear. So if it does, I'm be like,
listen, if you think about, I think about, there are people I grew up with, I don't rock with anymore.
Yeah.
Just me and my poetry writing self. I'm not Kanye.
Yeah.
But where the relationship was no longer legitimate because of where I imagined my trajectory. And you seem to be in the way of that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so now I'm drawing a boundary and we can't be relative to each other anymore. I'm thinking about the swag of walking onto a college campus and kids falling out, you know? And just wanting your signature on a flyer. And it means everything to them. It's everything.
I know.
It's the best thing that happened to them all year.
So in their defense, I suppose, I'm thinking back to baby Rebekah, baby poet Rebekah. And I remember Jessica Caremore.
Yes, my girl.
Right? She came to speak at my extra white college campus that we had a cross burning on the semester before I started. Oh, okay. And she was there. And for me, meeting her and talking to her and having her sign my book was amazing to me.
Yeah, it's everything.
It is. And so, I don't know, I guess.
But look, again, there's the gap, right? And this is just my truth. It's not the truth. It's my truth. You know, I want for, like, whatever brilliance I'm able to touch or manifest or bring into existence, whatever I'm able to curate that is the best and the most miraculous, that good poetry, that good alchemy, that good, you know, miracle-making, supernatural, walk on water, the best parts of this black girlishness, right? I don't want to perform from it in a way where you are so awestruck that you think it only belongs to me. That is not my ministry. I'm trying to perform from it in a way where you recognize you are in possession of it. I think Kanye wants to be exalted as being the sole possessor. That creates a lot of mania. There's just two ways. Again, it's just a very different way to sort of enter that conversation. The people who are like, let me introduce you to your brilliance. This ain't just a singular thing over here. I mean, I'm dope or whatever, but what you got?
Yeah.
That's one way.
You know who does it like that?
Who?
Ava DuVernay.
Yeah, she does.
She is like,
let me show you where you're brilliant.
Yeah.
Let me show you how you can get it like I get it or better than I get it, right? Like, that's the stuff that's really amazing to me, and that's that good alchemy. But if you're operating from a wound, then you're like, I really don't want nobody else to stand where I'm standing.
Yeah.
I want to be singular. I'm not interested in that. Kanye is. There's a consequence. There's a consequence.
All right, Kanye, I know you're listening, baby. I know you heard it all. So, gonna do some work on yourself. I think you should take some time to reflect on that. You hear me, Kanye? It's me, Rebekah Henderson.
Stop by for an interview anytime.
Come to the basement at any time, Kanye. You are allowed to come here, but I'm sorry, you cannot wear that Make America Great Again hat. You can't wear that. You cannot wear that in my house, okay? We can talk about flexing, though. We can.
Off Color is a presentation of Tan Tigers Productions, hosted by Rebekah Henderson, Produced by me, James Meekum. Music also by me. Follow us on Twitter at OffColorPod, on Facebook at OffColorPodcast. Subscribe to us on Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.